Hello and welcome to Animation Wars, where we decide if animated movies belong on the light side of the Force or the dark side. Based on the Newbery Award-winning book, The Tale of Despereaux was a pretty ambitious movie. It had a unique visual style for the time, meant to simulate a storybook illustration in CGI, and featured a shit ton of big-name voice talent. Matthew Broderick, Dustin Hoffman, Kevin Kline, and Emma Watson, just to name a few. However, since its release, it seems to have disappeared into obscurity, and I never hear anyone talk about it anymore, either positively or negatively. So let's see if the obscurity is well-deserved or not, shall we? Once again, let's start with a light side point, which is the visuals. This movie pays great attention to detail with its three realms, the human kingdom of Dor, the mouse world in the storage room, and the rat world in the sewers. There are many clever little touches to demonstrate the personalities of each world, such as how the crowns that the royal family of Dor wears are made of soup spoons, the street lights in the mouse world are made of matches, and how the citizens of Rat World use dead shrimp as boats and human skulls as carriages. There are also interesting animations of Despereaux' fantasies that resemble cutouts of fairy tale illustrations. While some of the human faces are animated a little stiffly, the animation is still beautiful for the most part. However, being a treat to look at can't save this movie from its first dark side point, the convoluted storytelling. I know what you're thinking. How convoluted can a story about a talking mouse be? Well, let's look at the opening, shall we? At the beginning of the movie, we follow a rat named Despereaux who, unlike most of his kind, enjoys sunlight and good food. No relation. And along with his human, he's visiting the kingdom of Dor, where soup is valued over everything else. After the king's chef consults his food spirit guide thingy, yes, I just said that, he unveils his big creation for Dor's soup day, but Despereaux falls into the queen's bowl. Upon realizing there was a rat in her soup, the queen has a heart attack and dies, and one crazy chase later, Despereaux ends up in the sewers, the king outlaws both soup and rats, which somehow affects the weather, bringing on a permanent overcast and drought. No, I don't get it either, and the kingdom falls into a mope. And all this happens before our main character is even born. And guess what? The story doesn't get any less convoluted as it progresses. We get subplot after subplot that involves the rat, the chef, the princess, a servant girl, and a guard, among others, and altogether it makes for a pretty messy plot that more often than not forgets about its main character. Speaking of which, another dark side point, which is Despereaux himself. This guy is just bland. You probably could make an interesting character out of a brave mouse born into a society that believes in cowardice, but this isn't the way to do it. Despereaux is just born without fear, it seems, and then after he reads the most cliché fairy tale in existence, he won't shut up about courage and honor and justice and all that jazz. And that's his personality. All of it. He doesn't really have any interesting character traits, and he doesn't have any real character flaws to overcome. Oh, and he seems to fall in love with the equally bland Princess P. Yes, that's actually her name. Yeah, try not to think about that too much.
It smelled so amazing. Like a garden.
But what's worse than a bland protagonist? How about a bland protagonist in a movie with a much more interesting character who could make a better protagonist? Such is the case with our next light side point, Miggery Sow. This is by far the most interesting character in the movie, a servant girl who's partially deaf thanks to her abusive guardian. She grew up slopping pigs and dreaming of living in the palace, then one day her dream sort of comes true when she's sold to the palace to be a scullery maid, but everyone there either ignores her or treats her like crap. Seriously, why is this movie about the mouse? I'd rather watch a movie about Miggery. Unfortunately, her story is underplayed thanks to the movie trying to cram too much into 90 minutes. Speaking of which, another dark side point, the intrusive narration. I'm sorry, Sigourney Weaver, I love you, but you really get in the way in this movie. I know it's supposed to be a fairy tale, and I don't mind narration in a movie when it's done well, but when your narrator talks over key parts of the story, you've got a problem. The narration is used to rush through key points of character development, including Despereaux and Despereaux's budding friendship and Despereaux's corruption after the princess chases him away. Yeah, ever heard of show don't tell? That applies to movies as well as books. Plus, the narration sometimes tries a bit too hard to be clever.
What would you do if your own name was a bad word? If John or Beth or Bill was an insult?
I don't know. Ask anyone named Dick. This movie's heart is in the right place, and I really want to like it, but the one-dimensional characters and the messy storytelling prevent me from doing so. The animation is nice, but whatever interesting ideas this movie has get rushed through thanks to the convoluted storytelling. Therefore, I somewhat reluctantly declare this movie property of the dark side. However, it's just barely dark side, and if you want to check it out, it's still worth seeing. You might even get something out of it that I didn't. Anyway, that wraps up this episode. Next month I'll be reviewing a movie requested by a friend of mine, so until then, may the animation be with you.